and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Tennille and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I am Whitney.
I'm Tennille.
And today we're not doing any of those movies because we have reached the end of the year 1980. So now we're taking a look at everything that we don't normally cover on Animation Pilgrimage.
It's time once again for us to slowly lose our minds as we realize how much animation is produced in a single year.
Yeah. So this episode is us going to be covering various extra movies and specials and shorts and TV shows from all across the world.
A lot of them recommended by you guys.
Yeah. So like at the beginning of this year, we asked people to recommend stuff for the year 1980, and we got a lot of stuff for all of the 80s. Thank you. But we were only looking for this year specifically. I think people,
it is confusing when we say like, hey, recommend us stuff for 1980. And so when you hear the 80, people assume the 80s.
All of the 80s.
80s.
Yeah. I think it'll make more sense once we get to the next year and it's 1981 specifically.
Yeah.
So we watched 15 different things that we're going to cover in this episode. They're going to be very brief. Again, this is just kind of
an overview of the year. How is 1980 doing in terms of animation?
Yeah, what are they doing that aren't animated films? So we're not necessarily going to go super critiquey on any of these. We're not going to give you a crazy amount of background and details on a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Hell, we might even do the shortest synopsis possible on each of these things. The TV shows, we only watched like one episode each. Very short exposure to each of these, just to give you like a brief idea of what's going on in this year.
But I am very confident to say that you should definitely check out some of these things that we watched, because we watched a whole bunch of stuff, some good, some bad, but I think there's enough of a mixed bag of content here that there is something for everybody to enjoy.
Absolutely. So we're going to be going country by country when we go over all this stuff, and we're going to start with the United States, because that's where we live, and I don't know, it just seemed like the right way to start this off.
And we're actually starting with something that came out in 1979, because whoops, we missed it.
Yep, it's Banjo the Woodpile Cat, made by Don Bluth.
I'm very embarrassed I missed this one.
How did we miss this?
I don't think I was in the mindset yet at the end of the 70s to start looking for
Don Bluth
and for like shorts instead of TV shows and stuff. So it completely slipped under my radar. Big apologies, but we're finally covering it.
Okay, so very brief history of who is Don Bluth, Tennille?
Don Bluth was a Disney animator. We've talked about him a couple of different times on Animation Pilgrimage. He was a animator and story man at Disney. And then we will be getting into more of his history once we reach The Fox and the Hound. But suffice it to say, he and a bunch of other animators have left Disney and have started their own studio. The first project that they did was this, Banjo the Woodpile Cat, which is also directed by Gary Goldman and John Pomeroy, who don't usually get as much credit as Don Bluth, but they should, because they're
co-creators.
Also co-creators and really influential to animation in general. Yeah, they made Banjo. Like I said, we're going to be going into more Don Bluth stuff later, so I know this is just a brief history of it. We'll get into it.
Yeah, so brief synopsis of what happens in this 30-minute short. Country bumpkin Kid Cat lives in the country, gets into a lot of trouble, as he does, goes to the city, gets in trouble there, wants to go home, is helped by the city slicker cat, who takes him through random songs, and at the end of it, he gets them on the truck to go back home. The end. Not a lot really happens.
Dude, okay, this is a
million things happen.
This is a 30-minute short that could have felt padded with 10 minutes. Like this is such a short story content, but somehow they padded it out to 30 minutes. And like I said, I think it would have felt padded 10 minutes long.
So this was very long. The plot beats don't really necessarily go into each other super well. It's very awkward, but it's the first project that this studio has made, and it screams Don Bluth.
Yeah,
it has
all the good, all the bad.
His exaggerated squash and stretch, his character designs, specific movements that you see in a lot of his films that will be coming out later. It just feels like all of his...
syncing.
Oh, the lip syncing that is way over the top.
Peak Don Bluth.
And it's just begun.
Whether you like it or you don't, it's there. This was, it's a fine watch. It's cute. It's well animated, of course. And I will say right off the bat, the Bluthisms in this that I really like to see are the character designs of the animal characters doing humanistic things. So the anthropomorphism of the actions that animals do, I think always had such a really good appeal in Don Bluth's animal animation.
Yeah, so they still look completely like a cat, but then they'll stand up on their hind legs and they'll like pull out a cigar or something and twirl it around in their hands or something like that.
Right, and it just looks so natural, even though you're making an animal do something that they would not be able to do.
Yes, that I will agree. That looks very good. So if you like Don Bluth and you haven't seen this, probably check it out. See where he really got his start on his own studio.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think of The Secret of Nim as like Don Bluth's first film. And it is, but like this is a precursor to that. So it's kind of interesting to go back to and see. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. Again, we're doing real short on all these films. Next up is the longest thing we watched, the Animalympics.
Technically, could have been a movie, but it was like a made-for-TV movie that was never put on TV.
It had a troubled production history. But it was made because the Olympics were happening in the 80s, and that's kind of fitting because the Olympics are happening right now.
It's topical. Wow.
Wow. It's animals doing the Olympics. And I've heard this movie was so infamous because it's like horny animals doing horny things in the Olympics. And it's furries. And it's none of that. It's really tame.
It is, but it's so tame. I don't know. This movie feels infamous as like that one horny furry movie from the 80s. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, really? Like, yeah, there's a couple of perverse jokes, but they're not perverse in a way that feels unnatural to the media and how it portrays Olympians.
Yeah, it's honestly, it feels like it's... The reason it's horny is because...
It's satire on media.
Yeah, 1980 media is horny.
Yeah.
Like, it's no more horny than what you'd see on regular television about real people. Which is gross, because that's real people, and this is a thing that unfortunately happens. But, like, the movie itself is just making a bunch of topical jokes. I don't know, it's making...
I enjoyed this quite a bit, actually. I thought it was fine. Like, I wouldn't go back and rewatch it per se, but I thought it was a fun time to watch.
There are some, not great things. Like,
there's definitely some dated humor. And
there is some racism. There's some fat phobia. A lot of fat phobia.
But in general, I thought this was more of a pleasant watch than an unpleasant watch.
Oh, absolutely.
And I especially really liked the character designs for a lot of the different animals. I thought they were fun.
Hey, there was an anteater in it.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything, but they were there.
This was also stacked with a whole bunch of talent in it. We have Billy Crystal, or I guess not necessarily stacked, but like... There's a lot of people that you wouldn't necessarily expect to hear their name tied to this. So Billy Crystal is a voice actor in this. Gilda Radner, Harry Shearer, and Michael Fremer? Sorry on any of these last names, I don't know. But for animation, we also have Roger Allens, Bill Croyer, and Brad Bird working on this.
Brad Bird.
The directors on this were Steven Lisberger and Michael Fermer, who was also one of the voice actors. The interesting story behind how this one was made is that it was actually commissioned by NBC. But then, if you know anything about America 1980, is that we boycotted the Olympics because they were taking place in Russia. We were doing the whole, Red Scare thing.
Oh.
So we didn't actually participate in the Olympics in 1980. So then the people animating this were like, well, fuck. And that is why this... That's another thing I've always heard about this one, is that it was half finished. But really... it feels fairly finished.
Yeah, there's
they've edited it together really well.
Yeah,
so
if there was unfinished sequences, they cut them and they were able to...
they cut them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, the movie still works.
Mm-hmm. It feels very much like kind of like a package film, where it's just all these different events getting...
shoved together.
Right, because it's supposed to be a media event.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I don't know. I say check this one out if it looks interesting at all to you. You'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, with that out of the way, we move on to American TV. What television shows are coming out? Well...
garbage, that's what. So much garbage. Spoilers, but American TV sucks. And I could say that with confidence because we watched some TV from other places around the world, and American TV is the worst.
First up, taking a look at what Filmation is up to, they gave us Thundar the Barbarian, which is notable because it's a precursor to He-Man. It's big, burly man running around post-apocalyptic world with girl and monster guy that just growls a lot, and they fight for humanity's sake, and it's really boring, and I don't know.
It's obviously a toy commercial.
Yeah.
It's cheesy AF.
The bad guy has two faces, then his head spins around and has a helmet that covers one face at a time, and it's
wow,
that's
a toy.
That's just a toy. So that's what you were getting into, and I don't know, there's nothing special. I don't feel angry about watching it. It's just I don't have anything more to talk about.
Bland and boring and predictable. Yeah. I don't have anything against necessarily Filmation's art style, even if I find it a little bland for TV.
Mm-hmm.
But the content itself is just a snooze fest.
Absolutely. The other American television show we watched was from Hanna-Barbera, one of their new shows that they popped out,
which is
among their 1,200 shows.
Exact opposite problem that I have with Filmation.
Drak Pack.
Okay, so Hanna-Barbera stuff. Filmation stuff is boring as hell. Hanna-Barbera stuff is annoying. It's so irritating. I don't know why parents would let their kids watch this shit.
So we decided to take a look at Drak Pack, which is about a teenage vampire, Frankenstein, and werewolf kids that are superheroes that run around the world and stop evil monsters. But it's just another Scooby-Doo style ripoff. It's a gang of teenagers that go on adventures and stop bad things from happening. And it's over-the-top, obnoxious, annoying jokes constantly, and I hate it.
So this was one of 14 other cartoons that Hanna-Barbera was making at the time. This is one studio doing 14 different productions. That's crazy.
That's too much. So
this feels like peak...
just
put a bunch of people in a pitch meeting room. Everybody writes down an idea. You throw it in a hat. You pull out the idea and you go, okay, make a show out of that. And so because there's just nothing inspiring these shows, they are just made as a product to be consumed. They're so soulless.
We have all these television slots. We're going to fill them all so no one else can take them and people are forced to watch our shitty shows.
We have no time to actually develop any of these ideas.
Mm-hmm. It's quite bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
As always, the graphic design, character design, and the backgrounds are still the strongest aspect of any Hanna-Barbera work.
But they look the exact same as every other Hanna-Barbera piece.
Well, yes, but they're also being, I think they're still being, the backgrounds at least are still being done by Iowa Takahata, I believe is the name. We've talked about him in the past. He also worked on Scooby-Doo, and he was one of the original painters for Bambi.
Okay.
So, like, his art style is, like, comes out very well, and I really like that aspect of it. But, man, is it not being put to good use in a show like this. Another interesting thing to note about this show in particular is it does have Captain Hook's voice actor playing Dracula, so that's cool.
No, it's
or
not
was
Dracula.
he not Dracula?
He was the villain.
Oh, he was the bad guy. Okay,
He was the bad guy. He was the leader of a group of bad guys, and he's just like he's doing really stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
that's America for you. Mostly not great.
The made-for-TV films like Banjo and Animalympics were good. I liked those, but when you just get into the TV slots, they're so poorly funded and they just don't have, like, any time or love being put into them. Just because, like, they're a product. They've got to get them out so quickly. I don't fault anybody who works on them for the way that they are. It's just that, like, that's the business and it sucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on from America, and now we are moving on to the Soviet Union and seeing some of the stuff that they have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So, first up, we have Tale of Tales by Yuri Norstein.
A short film. This was really interesting. Really good use of depth and visual storytelling, even if I don't 100% get it.
Yeah, like there's a cute little wolf child that keeps fading in between, like, other scenes. Like there's some wartime scenes going on of men going off to war and then them not coming back. And then there's some
that
other
was the
scenes.
part I feel like I got.
Oh yeah, the war part's really easy and understandable. There's also like some scenes of like just family doing things, and it's all like vaguely connected to this one house. Past that, I don't really understand. There's like a small child eating an apple and looking at some ravens. I don't know. There was a lot of different things going on. I don't entirely understand what it was meant to
mean,
like stand for. But the stop motion effects were very good.
This I highly recommend this one just in general. It's like I said, I don't necessarily get it, but it left me with feelings of it's being like it's about like life and loss and hope and perseverance, I guess. Like that's the kind of emotions it filled me with, even though like I didn't necessarily get it.
Yeah.
It is based on a Turkish poem and a Russian lullaby. I was able to find that out. And I just think this one's really neat visually. It's got some really cool cinematography and like storytelling choices that it makes. Like, I'd say check this one out.
Next up, let's look at some of the Soviet Union's television. So, like, they got that amazing short that they showed off, but they're also doing TV. And we're going to start off with New Pogodi. And I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. But
so, this one has actually been a TV show that's ongoing from 1969 to the latest episode that has came out was in 2017.
Oh, wow. This is ongoing. So, it's about a wolf and a very small, feminine male rabbit that he keeps trying to eat. And so we watched the episode that came out in 1980, and once you know it, it's about the Olympics because it's taking place in the Soviet Union. And so it's just a bunch of like chase scenes and stuff like that. The rabbit doesn't speak a whole lot. The Wolf just gets into shenanigans and gets beat up trying to...
It's a very Tom and Jerry-esque situation.
Yes, absolutely. So this one in particular, he's trying to eat all the rabbits that came from other countries to compete in the Olympics. And he gets shown up every single time. So, I don't know, it's fun.
Very straightforward classic cartoon shenanigans. It was super cute. I liked it. Important to note, so you know how I said that it started in 1969 and the latest episode was in 2017?
Yes.
There's only been 22 episodes.
Huh.
So it's just something that, like, they just make a new episode every few years.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, neat.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought this was pretty cute. I was perfectly fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool to see a show that I've never even knew existed before.
And New Pagodi means, like, I'll get you next time or something like that. Isn't that what it was?
I don't remember what the direct
translation was.
It's on screen, so you guys can see
it's something like, you know, like, I'll get you next time, rabbit, or
I'll get you yet.
I'll get you yet, yeah.
Or something to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
Another television show that's been going on for a few years, and we are only now taking a look at it. A Kitten Named Woof.
Oh my god!
This is so cute.
It's so cute.
Oh, it's an adorable little Siamese kitten, and it's named Woof, and it just does cute adventure things in a house, and is very naive. His best friend was a little puppy, interacts with a sly older cat and an older dog that doesn't like it because its name is Woof.
Woof.
Oh my god. Oh.
I could have watched like a million episodes of this.
It's very cute.
It's so cute. So this show's been going on since 1976 and will continue until 1982. So cute. A 10 out of 10. Good watch. The designs, the voice acting, the music, the humor, all hella charming, if you couldn't tell by our just like oohing and ahhing. I definitely, absolutely recommend people check this one out. The animation is so smooth and like the graphic design is fantastic, and I really love just like the limited design of everything. It's just really great.
So good.
Out of everything that we've watched, I think this is the one I recommend the most because I just absolutely melted watching this.
Yeah, this was probably number one out of everything we watched.
Mm-hmm. So cute.
And that's the Soviet Union. So from here, we're going to go to general Europe because we have a bunch of...
that, but we're immediately going to Canada, actually, for The Sweater.
Yeah, now we're going to a bunch of various countries that have, like, one short each that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with The Sweater from Canada. It's about a kid growing up in Canada, and everyone loves listening to hockey, and everyone wears the same red jersey of the same one guy, and everybody loves this one guy. So when they play hockey,
he's the star athlete right now, I guess. So
when he plays with his friends after school, everybody wears the same jersey. Everyone is the same person. Well, his got old, and so his mom ordered him a new jersey, and it was the blue team's jersey.
The rival team.
Who everybody hates. And so he's like, no, I can't wear this, Mom. But he has to wear it because they're poor, and this is like back in the 60s or whatever. So he goes to school, and everyone hates him because he's wearing the blue one, and he doesn't get to play, and he has to sit on the sidelines most of the time, and that's where it ends.
I can't believe it ended there.
There's like no resolution. It's just like, no, he's on the blue team.
The kids hate him now.
Yeah, and he's like, fuck that team. I want my red shirt back.
I was like waiting for but you know what? I found out it doesn't matter what jersey you wear. It's about how you play and being a good sport. But no, this is just like, nope, kids hate you now. Too bad your mom sucks and got you the wrong sweater. This is like the most Canadian thing I've ever watched.
Because it's all about hockey.
It's all about hockey. I was like, wow, I can't believe it's going to be like this Canadian.
It's French Canadian as well.
Yes, French Canadian as well. Apparently this is based off of a short story, also called The Sweater. And overall, I would say that this one is a bit rough around the edges production-wise, but it was super ambitious with the cinematography, and that's where it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was some really fun stuff that they did with this one, even if it is very rough overall.
Yeah.
It's cool to see what they're doing.
I mean, it's a huge leap forward compared to the last Canadian thing we watched, which was... What was it called? The Enchanted Village?
The Enchanted Village with the werewolf.
With the werewolf and the preacher and the bell.
That was bad.
Oh, man.
This was more enjoyable than that, for sure. All right, next up, from Hungary, we watched a 3-minute short called The Fly. I think this one technically came out in 1979.
I'm not sure, actually. I did not double check.
Okay. One of these next 3 came out in 1979, and I don't remember which one it was.
Okay.
But The Fly, it's a short film from a...
Wait! You'll never guess what it's about. I'll give you a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Whitney.
It's from the view of a fly as it flies around and gets inside a house and is chased around by a human, and eventually it dies and gets skewered on like an
insect.
An insect board. And that's it.
Yep. Honestly, this is really good.
The camera work is a little nauseating because it's a fisheye lens. Supposed to be erratic movement because it's from the fly's perspective.
And it's all animated.
Yeah.
Like, so because it's from a fly's perspective, you are not, ever
behind and watching
like a third person viewing the fly. You're from the fly's point of view. So all the backgrounds, everything the fly sees is animated, which if you're doing that with traditional art means that you are redrawing it every single frame.
It's a lot, but
there's
it's
a reason
really well
this
done.
is only 3 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. It is a lot, but it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah, and it's the perfect length and story for what you expect for this kind of thing. It's not going to surprise you at any points, but it just is what it is, and it does it really well. It's not very long, so I suggest checking it out, so long as you're not going to get motion sick from looking at it.
Yeah. Next up, from Croatia, who I don't think we've seen any animation from them yet, we have the short Fisheye. This was interesting.
This was very interesting.
So it's...
do a quick plot synopsis.
So a bunch of fishermen leave in the evening to go fishing all night with their wives and children left at home. And as soon as they leave, all the fish come out of the sea and they hunt down all the women and children and throw them in a big net and stab them all and drag them into the sea. By the time morning comes and the fishermen return, full of nets, full of dead fish.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a role reversal. It's a horror story, but also aren't we the monsters for eating fish, maybe?
It feels very much like a Alfred Hitchcock kind of concept, like The Birds or something. Like, what if we reversed the situation, and what would the natural conclusion of that be?
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting. Obviously very dark and eerie. It had some really cool visuals and a soundtrack that really keeps you on edge. I think the music does a lot in this one to really make everything feel uneasy.
Yes.
Obviously the visuals do that too, but the music really adds to it.
Yes. And, it probably is also some level of storytelling of, when will the cycle of revenge end type of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think you could get a lot of different meanings out of this, but yeah, as a story, it's very,
It knows what
I
it wants
get
to
what
do.
it's doing, and you take it to that.
It works good. All right, our last short that we are watching for this episode is from Estonia. Also, the first thing we've seen from them, and it's Toll the Great, or Sir Toll. Again, I don't know.
I don't know how to say
pronounce it, but that's what it is. So this is based on a folktale from the country, and it's about a giant named Toll, and he helps fight off.
The people will call out like, "Toll, help us! We're being invaded."
The enemies are attacking, and so then he comes along and like destroys armies and stuff.
Because he's
And
a big old giant.
His wife gets killed by some devil, and so he drowns the devil, and then there's another big army that comes along, and he fights that, and he gets his head chopped off, and then he like falls over and turns into a mountain, and he's like, if you ever need help again, just call my name and I will awaken, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's
another really dark and eerie one.
Mm-hmm.
But like this one's more so from the perspective of just like war. It's really just wild and nightmarish.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down in my notes that it feels very Salvador Dali, but mixed with folk tales. And that's really interesting. I don't have enough of a fine art, history, major knowledge to like elaborate on that, but I think it's really neat. And if you're interested in any sort of like surrealist Salvador Dali-esque style art, this is something you should check out.
Everyone dies at the end. Because like every time he goes to save his people,
Mm-hmm.
they're always like depicted as not having armor, and they suck, and they constantly die compared
Get stabbed,
to like
yeah.
the oncoming waves of enemies.
It's a downer.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a downer. Okay, and with that, we are moving on to the final section. It's Japan! Who could have seen that coming? From Japan, we decided to take a look at 4 different shows of
4 different animes.
4 different anime, which are mostly different genres, I would say.
We only watched the first episode
Of each of them.
We tried to keep it a small list because Japan produces a lot of anime, and if we start watching everything, we're never going to watch it all.
Yeah, so we're just covering these 4.
These are just our first impressions from watching the first episode.
Mm-hmm. So first up, we watched Astro Boy from like the 1980 reboot of Astro Boy.
So this is the 1980 version is a remake of the original 63 series.
Mm-hmm. So this is like the origin story episode. And Tennille, you've never experienced Astro Boy's origin story before.
Nope, I sure hadn't. Holy shit. Okay.
So there is a scientist man that makes robots, and he has a young boy named Tony or something. And
I mean, I don't think that was his name. I think his name was like Tobia?
Toby? I don't know. Small child. Child is depressed when he can't hang out with dad, so he gets in a car and dies in a car crash. And on his deathbed, he says, Dad, make a child robot and make it named after me and make it have all the guns and make it super cool. And Dad's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so he does that. And now
the boy goes,
the boy's dead.
He dies!
And so Dad makes a robot that's a copy of his son, but is definitely not his son. He's just made this robot that is a copy of his son, and that's our main character.
That's Astro Boy.
Super powerful robot child.
He puts a skin suit on him.
Yes, he
I don't
does.
like it. I don't like it one bit, Whitney.
And then this episode has like a tank going nuts and destroying the city, and people die, but Astro Boy's there and he saves some people, and like then they have to run away from Japan and moved to America because the government didn't want him making this robot in the first place, and that's where the episode ends. I don't want to make
this robot in the first place. This is so unethical and fucked up.
Oh, it is.
It's so messed up.
Also, there's like an evil scientist man that makes an evil Astro Boy that he names...
Oh, shoot. What was
Adonis? Atlas?
Atlas.
He names
Atlas.
evil Astro Boy Atlas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a thing that comes up eventually in the show. Ooh. So I thought this was originally going to be like a kid's show. And I guess it kind of is, but like...
It is.
Death and violence everywhere. I love it.
It's messed up, man. It's so messed up. But, like, I guess what we should say is that, like, whoops, we should have watched Astro Boy sooner. But also... It's Astro Boy, and it's one of the most influential animes of all time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's from the creator of anime, Osamu Tezuka himself.
Yeah.
It's just we somehow haven't watched it yet.
In America, he was called Mighty Atom. And,
No, the other way around.
What?
He's Mighty Atom in Japanese.
What?
Yeah, in Japan they call him Mighty Atom. Here in America we call him Astro Boy.
What? I thought it was the other way around.
No, he's Atom in Japan. He's Astro Boy here.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, look at me. I feel like a fool. I know nothing about Astro Boy. Actually, I know more about Mega Man than I know about Astro Boy, and I know nothing about Mega Man.
And Mega Man is definitely a ripoff of Astro Boy. And by ripoff, it's like just taking the same concept of Robot Child and
people use the word ripoff way too freely to mean bad and unoriginal, when really, like, ripoff is fine. Like,
yeah,
it's just taking a concept and doing something else with it.
So ultimately we watched this because, I don't know, maybe this particular revamp of the show was good, but also we somehow haven't watched any Astro Boy yet, and that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
In a show about the history of animation.
I don't know. This is wrong. Astro Boy is wrong. Everything about this was wrong.
Okay. The next show we watched was The Wonderful Adventures of Nils.
Which was suggested to us by quite a few people.
2 or 3, but that's still a lot of suggestions.
Yeah.
So we checked it out. They're like, I don't know if this show is even necessarily good, but I just remember watching it and, like, it resonated with me.
Mm-hmm. Which... I'm glad we watched it because it's a retelling of a story we've already seen.
Yes. The Goose Boy?
No, the Enchanted Boy.
The Enchanted Boy. It's about a real shitty kid who beats up animals and is a bad kid. He catches a small gnome, brownie, dwarf, fairy guy, and he's like, hey, I'll give you money if you release me. And the kid's like, thanks, I changed my mind, I'm not going to release you. And so he's like, well, screw you. And he shrinks him down to his size and leaves. And that's where this episode ends. But knowing the original story, what eventually happens is he has to go on many adventures and he learns to be a nice person. Like, then he'll eventually be able to return to regular size.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it was enjoyable.
Yeah, it was really cool to see, to revisit a story we've seen before in Animation Pilgrimage. I really enjoyed the art direction of this and the slower pace of things. This was made by Studio Perrot? It's meant to be named after a French word, so I don't know.
I don't know either.
But this is the same studio that, when we were growing up, were making Naruto and Bleach.
Oh. Well, that's neat.
This was directed by Hisayuki Toriyumi, who did Space Ninja Team Gatchaman.
Oh, of course.
And overall, this one was really good. I'd actually be interested in continuing to watch this one to see how it compares to the movie. I don't know that I necessarily want to sink that much time into it, but, like, I'm interested.
It was neat. It was cute. Next up... It's time for drama. It's time for intrigue.
It's time to question your gender.
It's time for the Rose of Versailles. Oh my God. I loved this. So, this is in France. set before the French Revolution.
20 years before the French Revolution.
Well, I mean, like, 25 years before the French Revolution and then 20 years before the whatever.
By looking up stuff about this one, I know that it takes place up to and then past the French Revolution.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so the drama.
The drama.
The drama.
So, this is a datey, quote-unquote, girl anime. It's a shoujo.
Mm-hmm.
This was
awesome.
This is about Oscar, a young girl who is born into a French general family. And the dad's like, I need a son, so you're going to become my son.
He's like, I've had 5 or 6 other girls already. I need a boy, so you are now my son. And
your name is Oscar. And so he raises his child to be a man, even though she's a girl.
Okay, so it's not like they're hiding her gender.
Yes.
I want to say that, like, this is still 80s and still, like, weird. So they still call her, like, you know, you're a girl, she, her, Lady Oscar, but she is raised as a boy.
Mm-hmm.
So just to let people know, like...
This might be a little problematic by today's standards of how you would refer to someone and their genders and dead naming and stuff like that. But it's the 80s in Japan, and they don't care. Yeah.
In general, this was interesting so long as, like, none of this stuff is going to be, like, harmful to your mental health or anything like that.
It's the kind of thing, it's like, oh, wow, I could see myself sinking a lot of time getting involved in the drama.
The drama of all this, because, ooh boy, is it tasty.
The first episode is how she bests other people and is the best swordsman around. It becomes the guard to Marie Antoinette, the to-be Queen of France, who is eventually the final Queen of France before the French Revolution and everybody dies.
Yeah.
You know, so you can tell that there's going to be a lot of hoity-toity drama that's going to go on here. Is she going to fall in love with male guards? Is she going to have a fling with Marie Antoinette or some of the other ladies of the country? Who knows? I don't know. But you could tell that's where it's going to.
I'm just so excited by this concept. The mangaka for this series, because of course it was a manga before it was an anime.
Of course.
Was Ryoko Ikeda. And yeah, this was fun. I liked the art direction on this one. I enjoyed it.
I think this one was one of those very early formative and popular shoujos that came around.
That influenced a lot of different ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, this one had me from, like, the concept alone. I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm into it.
All right.
So last but not least,
the very last thing that we watched was Ashita no Joe, or Tomorrow's Joe. Set in, I don't know, I think it's like the 1950s Japan or so. It's Japan as it's quickly becoming modernized. So there is like the big city and there is the still like very
developing
poor sections of Japan that look still very restoration period and stuff like that. And so this is the story of Joe. He's a vagabond who's wandering around the slums and he saves some children and he's shows real promise as a fighter. So
as a boxer.
Well, this drunk old man who used to be a boxer is like, I'm going to train you to be the best boxer around. And that's mostly where this episode ends after they come up on the wrong side of a bunch of gangsters.
Yeah.
And like, there was a couple of compilation film movies that were made that we did not cover because we don't watch compilation films. And like, this is one of the more popular boy sports animes that is out right now.
I was going to say, like, this was the most popular anime of the time, like, in 1980, wasn't it?
Somewhere around
Or, it was one of.
It was one of the most popular things out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it never gets a full movie, so we're never going to cover it, and that feels wrong. So that's why we watched this, because it started before 1980.
Yeah, and it's also super influential. It was produced by Mushi Productions, so Osamu Tezuka's production house. Really, what I want to emphasize about this one is I really loved the different style of this one. This one just feels so different, character design-wise, from most anime we've seen at this point. And it has so much texture.
Mm-hmm.
And the texture is like in the line art, but it's also in the way that people move.
It just feels rough, but like in a good way.
Yeah, like it's rugged and you can just feel everything on screen. And I also really liked the little bit of extra character animation that went on to Joe, because Joe is such a stoic character, and yet they just give him these little moments to just like smirk or like look away, and it those little touches make him feel a lot more aloof and cool and cocky.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we only watched this first episode, I had a really good feeling of knowing who Joe is and separating him from the million other boy anime characters I've seen that look exactly like him. Because it's a very standard anime boy protagonist
of this
we're looking at, but the little bits of extra character animation really made him his own unique character, which I thought was really nice. So for the manga of this series, it actually has a writer and an illustrator. So the writer was Asahao Takamori, and the illustrator was Tetsuya Chiba. And then the director of the anime was Osamu Dezaki. So yeah. That's everything that we watched.
Yeah, so some of that stuff was catch up from 1979 or slightly earlier, but like
most of it is 1980 or was still
going on
in 1980.
And so I feel like it was appropriate to cover all this stuff now. And then from here on out, we'll just be doing stuff that starts in the year that we cover.
Yeah. So next year, or not next year, but when we release a video that's like, give us your suggestions for 1981, you can give us your suggestions for 1981 and what we should check out there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bit of a list that mostly covers some American shows, although I think a lot of American shows don't really start getting off the ground until like 1983 forward. So I really love getting suggestions from people on other countries, because it's just really hard to look up everywhere and like find all this stuff. So it's really great that you guys help us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was a mixed bag, but overall I would say that this was an excellent selection of shows and shorts.
Oh yeah, I honestly, even though some of this was kind of bad, I enjoyed watching all of it.
Mostly just the American stuff.
Yeah,
like
the American stuff
TV
was bad.
shows.
Yeah, the American TV shows was bad, but like everything else was really good.
It's just another reminder that like animation here, late 70s, early 80s here in America is really not doing well, but in other parts of the world, like, you're doing great. You're doing keep at it, baby. You're doing good.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. And now that we have fully finished the year 1980, join us back here next time for the
wrap-up.
The Anteater and Cat Award Show.
Woo!
I can't say lizard and cat anymore because there's no lizards anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, join us back here next time for our thoughts on what is the best and the worst that came out of the year of 1980.
Mm-hmm.
All personal preference, of course.
Yes. All 100% facts.
Yes. See you guys then.
Bye.
でも苦しもそれが